Okay, welcome to the Rugby League Outsiders set of 6, where we share the good, the great and the noteworthy of Rugby League outside the heartlands. My name's Craig.
And my name's Karl, and on this week's show we'll be looking at the Challenge Cup results from the weekend. There's trouble at Salford, but there's big news coming at London.
Right, here we go again. So, Karl, another weekend of Rugby League news. Few cancellations again of different matches, but a lot of the Challenge Cup games actually took place. Some great news coming out of there. We'll come on to that a bit later on. We're going to start off in the nation's capital and a bit of news coming out of London.
Incredible news. Well, if proven to be true, so there were an article in the Sun newspaper that went out this week that says that Brisbane Broncos are looking to buy a stake back in the London Broncos, with Gary Hetherington also being involved. He's looked to have been brokering a deal between the two sides. So we don't know all the details, but everyone's getting excited about it, and for good reason.
Do you know, I mean, I can't help, I don't want to be that bloke, but I can't help thinking we could have done with this 18 months ago, 12 months ago. Do you know what I mean? Or perhaps they had to get themselves into the state they were at the end of last season in order for this to happen.
They weren't in a state though, were they? Well,
they were, because the owner bounced out, didn't it?
Yeah,
like,
but
right, no more.
But it wasn't really the fault of anybody at the club. I think London did everything they could do last year with the cards they were dealt, I suppose. So I thought London, people wanted them in Super League, didn't they, at the end of last year? But we had the IMG grading system. We know why that was brought in, to try and raise standards. But looking at the Salford situation, you've got to really question now whether that's worked, but we'll get on to Salford on tackle 2.
Yeah, just a little bit on social media. I've noticed that a lot of clubs' socials are rapidly improving. Have you noticed this? I mean, even Halifax Panthers are bringing out a film now. Have you seen that? Yeah. It's so I think that's got to be a good thing. And London was obviously forefront. They were brilliant on their socials, despite being the bottom end of the Super League table. This kind of potential takeover, like, what do we know?
We know that Gary Hetherington's involved
somehow. Yeah,
somehow. What does that mean for Leeds Rhinos? We're yet to know. It could be interesting. Ian Blease came into Leeds, didn't he, last year? So, is he going to be looking at taking over Leeds on a full-time basis? Is Gary going to be, concentrating solely on London? I mean, we don't know. But we do know Brisbane Broncos are definitely in advanced talks, is the word on the street. So, it sounds good. I think AFC Wimbledon, they want to keep them at the ground. Yeah. That's been reported. I think we've got to wait and see, but it's exciting stuff. I mean, it was 30 years ago. Brisbane were last involved with London Broncos. 1994.
Really?
They bought the London Crusaders. That's when it sort of where the name came from. And then they eventually sold it to Richard Branson a few years later, didn't they? So it's just thinking about the NRL Super League connection. It's exciting stuff.
Yeah, and you ran a poll on Twitter, didn't you, to try and get a feel, with the London Broncos fans as to, what they thought about this. And what did you glean from that?
Well, I suppose it's very much like we are. There's a lot of excited people, but a lot of people saying, let's wait until, it's over the line and the details are properly announced. There's not loads you can say on it. I mean, if you think about it solely from Brisbane's point of view, it kind of seems to work. Players that aren't quite first grade in the NRL, would London Championship, possible Super League, be a good place for it to be playing? Yeah, of course it would. That makes sense, doesn't it? You can start dreaming, really. Could they bring Brisbane over one game a year, play a game in the capital? Surely people would get behind that. There's so many possibilities for this.
Well, and I think it's the possibility. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, London must have like the biggest commercial potential in the country.
Yeah, 100%.
I know they're down in the capital and they're cut off from the M62 corridor and all that kind of thing, but in terms of like potential crowd, if they can package it right, if they can get some excitement about it, potential crowd is huge. Not only that, the potential, it is the main business district in this country. Yeah. They did like sponsorships, and we're in the right hands with the right investment, doing the right thing. Getting the product out on the pitch, the potential is huge for London, and it's needed in the Super League, isn't it?
I think we all pretty much agree. Well, we certainly agree that we really do need a London side in Super League. We understand the reasons why it ain't happened currently because of the grading system, and I do still lean towards it, even though it's probably been proved in the last couple of weeks it's not quite working. Teams did need to raise their standards, so I am all for it. But yeah, I do agree we need a team in London, and it does feel like this is going to work. This all ties together. Like I say, London Rugby League could be huge. I think it's just the thing that it needs.
Right, so we're going to move on from good news at London to some bad news at Salford, Karl.
Paul, we're just gonna we'll dive right into it then. From a fan's perspective at Salford Red Devils, what on earth's been going on, really, mate?
That's a very, very good question. It looks like it's just been one complete muck up from the start. I think a lot of it from the outside looks like the club was living on a dream of something that could happen, or they're waiting for the next thing to happen, and just living day to day as if there was no problem. We know this is going to happen eventually. It's going to happen eventually. We can keep going, and it's just caught up with them. It's quite frankly, it's just really poor management. I understand that they have been let down in certain ways. Obviously, the stadium delay was huge because we've got no revenue coming in from it.
Yeah,
that's one of the the big sort of key assets that we were going to have. But for me, you can't just rely on something that somebody else is dealing with, especially when it comes to a local council buying a stadium. That's not something that's going to happen overnight.
Yeah,
there's a lot of things to deal with. Plus the other party that they were buying the stadium off and such. So it looks like to me, it just comes across that they've kind of lived beyond the means, with the right intention of thinking that eventually this will all right itself once we start getting this money in. But that's not how to run a business.
Paul, can we just go back to the stadium deal?
Yeah.
Talk me through it. Like, who's it owned by first? I know it's moved hands a couple of times, hasn't it? So, where are they at with the stadium at the minute?
Well, it was built by Salford Council and Peel Holdings, who own the Trafford Centre and most of everything around the Manchester Ship Canal. Yeah. All developments that have happened there in the last 20, 30 years. And it was a joint venture for them too, and we moved in and paid rent to them. So realistically, from the start, it wasn't going to work in that way because we'd moved from the Willows where we didn't pay.
Yeah.
Everything that came in was ours. And since then, we've never had any revenue from the stadium, any match day sales, any drinks and food or anything like that. None of that comes to us. So it's been a stretch to actually pay the rent, never mind to try and make any money while we've been there.
Yeah.
And then since then, in the last year, Salford Council have tried to buy their share off Peel Holdings because Peel really don't want anything to do with it anyway. They were kind of the facilitator financially to get the stadium built.
Yeah.
They were the money behind it, but the council didn't have to fork out. But now the council made a commitment to the rugby club, to both us and Sale Rugby Union in many ways, that we would have part ownership of the stadium, which is obviously part of the IMG criteria as well. You've got to have some control over what goes on at your stadium. So now Salford Council have finally purchased the stadium, but now the club have to negotiate with the council on terms and conditions, i.e. what rent we will pay, which hopefully will be reduced from the huge amount that we were being asked to pay, and also getting a percentage of those things that I've mentioned, the match day ticket sales. I mean, for a rugby club not to get anything from that is ridiculous. That's got to be one of the main streams of revenue.
Of course, mate.
Your half-time pint and a beer. we get nothing. So it's about negotiating that, but that will take time again.
Paul, I read somewhere that £315,000 was the figure that I'd heard thrown around, which Salford themselves said they were expecting in November. Was that like a back payment for something?
Well, it was going to be a grant from the council. A grant,
okay.
Now, I didn't know anything about this until about a week ago, until I read this. I was a bit shocked. But obviously the council then said, look, we can't do that. But when you think that they've just invested millions in buying a stadium of taxpayers' money, you can understand why the council would then say, look, we think this is probably not the right thing to do. And I don't know, it's not the council's job to prop up the rugby club.
No, of course not.
They have commitments to the people of Salford, really. That's where their priorities lie. And they've been fantastic with us, the council. I must say, right the way through the whole process, they've really backed us and helped us out. And in the past, they have given the club grants and forwarded a bit of money to help us get through some tough times. And this is just one of those occasions where they've obviously decided, no, we can't afford to. And the club, this is what I mean about the club sort of living on things that may happen. Yeah, somebody said we could give you this, and the club have gone, oh, okay, that's in the bank. But it isn't. Until it's in the bank, it's not in the bank. Mm. And then it sort of comes to roost, and the RFL have obviously, rightly in many ways, gone in there and thought, hang on, how are you running this club? And this is where these problems have now come to light, that we are spending more than we're getting.
And I suppose the only assets that the club's got in reality, in absence of a stadium and other revenue streams, is the players. And no shortage of vultures kind of circling, ready to snap these players up.
Absolutely, and that's been the case for the whole time we've been at the stadium. It's been a case of we get some dead decent teams together. We realise we can't afford to pay them. I'll take that next step. So we'll sell them on. 2019 was a prime example. We make the grand final. I think the next season, something like 8 of that team had already gone. To sort of finance the year after. The year after that, we go to the cup final. We sell a load of them. And it's just kept happening. This, even last year with Brodie Croft and Andy Ackers, Tyler Dupree, all left the club just for the financial aspect. It's a bit like sort of lower league football clubs, if you like. That's what they tend to do. They produce players to sell on. And that's the way it's been. It's been so frustrating because obviously we've punched well above our weight in terms of finances. I mean, last year to finish fourth is still sinking in now, to be honest with you. But that team of players that were magnificent last year, the Mark Sneed, the Nene McDonald's, them kind of characters, could easily be moved on now because they are, they are, like you say, they're the club's only asset until we get something out of this stadium, which can then start producing a bit more, or give us a stake that we could lose in many ways. So. Yeah, I mean, it's just so disappointing as a fan because you build on things. I think we recruited reasonably well for the next season for 2025.
Yeah.
And we were looking fairly positive. And then all of a sudden, mid-December, we find out, that the club's in crisis once again. We're going to have to let, half the team go. It could be, I think we've got to say something like £800,000. Well, that could be as many as 4, 5, 6 top players. And then we can't recruit because we haven't got the money to recruit. So then we're relying on reserves, which I travelled to Barrow on Saturday and watched our reserves against Barrow's first team. And literally, when you say men against boys, it was. And that's very worrying. It's no good. It's no good for the game in many ways. But we've created this problem.
It's a very honest opinion. I think. I think, Paul, what is the DNA of the club? I mean. What's the structure, the structure of the club? Are you fan owned at the minute?
Yeah, it's very convoluted in many ways. It is community owned by that share issue they did last year.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Everyone sort of bought into that. But the decision making, again, there's kind of 2 separate boards, if you like.
Yeah, this was sort of the point I was sort of going to get to. With it being sort of like community owned. I'm assuming you've bought into the club in some way, or other people have. Yeah. What kind of say do you get on the running of the club?
Very little, none. In fact, realistically, is how I would say it. I think I've got my own opinions on the whole share thing. I wasn't totally convinced by it at the start. I'm certainly not now.
Right.
I think it was not a cash grab. That's not fair, but I think it was a need must at that point. And if it had just said, "Look, we need the fans to put some money in because we're struggling," and sold it that way, that would have worked. Now people think they have got some right to say something about the club because they've given maybe £100. Well, it doesn't work like that. You don't get invited to board meetings. You might find out what was said.
Yeah.
But there's no real control. We have fans.
I'm going to say, is there is there any fan representatives on the board or anything like that? So the fans have got some sort of control in decisions that are being made.
Yeah, there's a panel, if you like, a board separate to the main club board, if you like,
right.
And they converse with the club and both communicate with each other. But how much sway they actually have and power is not something I have any knowledge of, and I don't suppose they have an awful lot. Because I think if you ask a fan, should we go out and spend another $100,000 bringing in a player that we can't afford? I think they'd all say, well, no, that's a bit stupid.
Yeah.
So I don't really know how that works at that level. I think it is very convoluted, but I think realistically the power still lies with those people at the club, the chief exec and them kind of people. And I know they work extremely hard to do what they do. It's another thing with Salford. We have such a small staffing level. We sometimes have one person doing 4 people's jobs right across the, and we're talking from the corporate side of things to fan liaison to trying to find merchandise. It's been run on a very, very small budget, which is why also the losses seem quite small when you see them put down on paper. We might have lost £400,000 in a year compared to other clubs who could have lost 2-3 million. Yeah. So that's because we've got that much expenditure in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's very confusing. It's hard to explain really how it works. But the fans do have representatives within the club, but how much actual sway they get is something that I couldn't answer, and I don't think it would be an awful lot.
Now, the ripples for this are probably going to be felt for the next couple of seasons, especially the IMG gradings and that kind of thing.
Like I say, if somebody doesn't come in at the last minute, we're going to play most of this season. Obviously, our best players will go. We'll play most of the season with reserves, and it'll end up a bit like Halifax a number of years back when they went through the season, and I don't know if they won any games at all, and then they were relegated. That's what will happen to us. We'll drop out of the league and we won't be coming back to Super League because there's no point anybody investing, as you guys well know, and anyone in Rugby League who follows Rugby League knows that there's no money at the top level. There's certainly no money any lower down.
Yeah.
So nobody's going to come in and save us at that point. We will be a community club and we'll probably never see the likes of Super League again. So that's how big this is. And it will have a knock-on effect with NJ. I'm not sure how it's going to work. If somebody does come in now and says, I'm going to pump this money in, how much of that will be corrected in the next 12 months? And then when the license review comes again, the IMG, because I think there's only 3 of us on a B license, isn't there, in Super League?
Yeah.
Hull and Huddersfield being the other 2. Well, I think they're fairly financially secure and probably in better positions than us at the moment. So if it comes down to a team missing out at the end of the year, even if we don't finish bottom, if they just look at our record and the finances haven't improved, then it'll be us out. And like I say, that will be the end of us as a Super League team.
What do you feel about your IMG grading? Essentially in financial trouble now. Yeah. Do you think it's right that they were given a B grade? I know it's not just based on finances. I'm just interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, I think you see, I don't know what I can and can't say.
Yeah.
I think there are ways around it. I think you can show balances in the bank at one point when you are being reviewed that may not be there the next day.
Yeah.
And it'll look good on your account. And IMG will look at that and go, oh, that's okay, they've got some money, let's move on. What's the next thing we're reviewing? I think the whole process is a little bit flawed anyway. But yeah, we've got, a decent stadium. Our on-field performances have been pretty good for the last 5-6 years.
Yeah, we've punched well above your weight for years, haven't they? Certainly on the field.
Most criteria we did okay. It's obviously just supporters through the gate, which is a struggle constantly every year. it is out there. It's just, I think the club, again, because of their financial restraints, can't market the game well enough at the moment, which again comes down to finance, to get out to the people, to get the people to come to the game, which is, one part of the criteria. And then the other is the whole financial black hole as it is. And yeah, I agree. But the only thing that I worry about is I look at everybody else in rugby league at the moment, and I think, well, who else's finances are that secure at any level of the game?
Yeah.
And I think it's a problem for the game at the moment. And I really do worry that we may be. I think Martin Sadler put it in an article the other week, and to an extent, he's kind of correct that I think we may be the tip of the iceberg. I think we've highlighted the problem we've got. I've said all along about, yes, Salford have made lots of problems for themselves. Not bringing in enough money, good sponsors. I mean, our sponsor from last year, Selco, was fantastic. But that ran out. And at the end of the year, we were scrambling saying, we don't have a sponsor for next year. We've got one now, but we've got a gap. Well, you can't live like that. That should have been in place 6-8 months ago, knowing exactly who's going to take over next year. But then there's the game itself. The prize money just isn't there. I may be wrong, and you guys could probably advise us. I think crowds across the board have dropped. I don't think we're getting the same people through the doors at the moment, which again is a problem financially for the game. And then as we drop lower, if we're going to replace Salford with who?
Yeah.
Who is financially stable at the moment? We saw London last year. A great effort from him. I've got nothing but praise for him. But financially, once Hughes stepped away, what was going to happen there? To lose possibly, but then there's the financial implications of everybody else in the game.
Yeah.
It's a tough question. It's impossible to know. I don't know what IMG saw in Salford's finances to give us any rating, because clearly, as we know now, there was no money there, so you can't rate somebody on something they haven't got.
Yeah.
But maybe they've seen across the board and gone, well, this is probably the best of a bad bunch in that way.
Well, Paul, hopefully there's some good news on the horizon. I've read this morning that they're hoping to have some sort of deal in place with a consortium by the end of this week. So hopefully we're recording this and it's just all been in vain, and hopefully there's something going to come to fruition. Look, Paul, if I was to ask you, what do you want to see from Salford in the next sort of 6 months? Obviously, you would hope that the club's going to be saved. Would you want a bit more transparency from the club? Would you want the fans to have a little bit more of a say in what goes on?
I think that depends on who comes in and how it's run. Because with new owners, I think this whole community aspect that was created 2 years ago will have to go. Yeah, because if you put your money into the problem is resolved. We haven't had a financial backer in any way who is the top man who has to say, if you like. We've had Paul King, who's run the place day to day, but he's not a financial, whiz or anything like that. He's just a guy that stepped into the breach to help the club. I think if you're putting your own money into the club, you're going to want the say. I think like at any club, you're not going to want the fans telling you exactly what's going on. So it depends. If they still want this community side of things to go along with what the council have achieved as well, then yeah, absolutely, I would want the fans to have more of a say. Certainly a fan on the board who can liaise and put our points over. But yeah, I think transparency is the big thing, because I've had so many messages in the last week or so since all this really broke that people feel like they've been lied to. That everything's fine, don't worry, we're okay, we're planning for next year, we're doing this, and then all of a sudden it comes to like, there's nothing there. We're going to have to let all our players go. People have already bought season tickets on the hope of next season being another good year.
Yeah.
What's funny that people could probably think, you know what, I could have saved that. We don't need to spend that kind of money. So people were very, very disappointed with the club, and names have been spread about and that kind of thing. And I don't buy into all that. I think the people who were there were doing it for the right reasons, possibly just not maybe adept at running a rugby club. They may have run their own businesses, but professional sport is a completely different beast. So I think overall that people have to look at the whole thing and think, well, could anybody else have done any better without any money? So I think the one thing we need as a club is stability. We've not had it. We've not had it for years. Get the stadium deal done. That's the main thing. Let's get some revenue coming out of that on a match day. Even when we're not playing, it can make a little bit of money from us from conferences and that kind of thing. And just financial stability. Just to know that at the end of the year, we're not going to go through this again like we do every year, that we're going to have to sell all our best players just to stay alive and try and kick around in Super League. You know, I don't buy the chasing the dream of let's go out and spend this money and go and win the Super League. Let's just, but let's build something slowly. I think we've got a great head coach, Paul Parkin. I know he's moving upstairs next year, but he has worked miracles. And I feel for him. I can imagine what he could do with 2 or 3 more, key players in there that we didn't have to sell. A Dupree, like I say, or a Croft, an Ackers, that kind of thing. How far could we have gone? So yeah, it's stability for me. That's what I want in the next 12 months. The club just to settle down and let's go through a year without crisis.
Right, well, obviously it's a very complex situation, and one of the best places if you want to follow this story along is the Devil in the Detail podcast. So, Paul, do you want to give a bit of plug for that?
Yeah, listen, if it wasn't for our listeners, it'd just be 3 guys on a laptop talking nonsense. Look, we do it because we love it. We love Salford Rugby League Club, and we just we're quite lucky actually. We do have a good relationship with the people at the club, so we get access to the players and the coaches and so on to do interviews and that sort of thing. As an independent podcast, it's quite a good thing. But yeah, it's more about trying to spread the word for us, and we try not to be too negative with the club at times, but it's very difficult. They do test you. But yeah, we just love doing it. We'd go to the pub and do it if we weren't doing it online.
Yeah.
So if anyone's free and got a bit of time, and wants to hear what we think from the inside about our club, then give us a listen. I know it's probably a little bit niche. We do obviously cover other aspects of rugby league, any of the big items that are coming up, but it is mainly on our club and how we see things. And there's 3 guys there with 3 very differing opinions. One guy's super positive. I'm usually the negative guy, and there's a balance in the middle. But it's just great fun to be involved in, and it's something we do just like say out of the love of the game and out of the love of the club.
Brilliant. Okay, Paul, well, thanks for spending a bit of time with us today and explaining the situation there.
Yeah, cheers, Paul, and all the best. Hopefully the situation gets sorted out for you guys.
Yeah, cheers, lads. It's been wonderful talking to you both.
Right, okay, so no messing around this one then. Sniper, we're about to get a little bit of real talk from the Sniper here. Quite often in rugby league, it's easy to concentrate on some of the surface things that's going on that gets our attention, but actually there's some big, deep-rooted problems. And to talk us through that is the Sniper.
How's it going, guys? Are you well?
Yeah, we're good, thanks. We're good.
Rolling, another week closer to the season, so yeah, it's all exciting stuff.
Absolutely. We've got a lot to get through today, guys, and I think we're opening a real Pandora's box. So let's get into it. We're not going to talk about grading at all, despite it being a huge elephant in the room. We just don't really have time. It could be an episode in itself. Brisbane potentially taking a stake in the London Broncos. The question is, how big a stake would they actually take and how active would they be? We think it's a good thing. What do you guys reckon?
Yeah, we were pretty much of the same sort of thought, some real good potential because, you look at the size of London and the potential, it's right in the centre of the financial district and all this kind of thing, potentially great, especially if it's been led by an organisation that's proven, that have done it already.
Yeah, and they've got money behind them to make it work, essentially. And there's so many reasons why Brisbane purchasing London can work. To players going across overseas to play for London to strengthen their side. Could they bring a game on the road every year to the UK? That would be a massive draw for Brisbane. Similar to what they do for the NFL. So yeah, we're fully behind it, and I know that London fans are getting really excited.
Yeah, and there are enough Aussies in London to make it really, really good as well.
Oh, so definitely.
That sounds great. Yeah. So remember when the Broncos came into the NRL itself, they had the entire Brisbane market to themselves. Now, of course, you've got the Dolphins, who started up a couple of years ago. Yeah. So for them, London will be the same. It'll be, virgin pastures, if you like. Mm. They'll be the only club in town. So with the Brisbane board potentially running the show, That would presumably make it more attractive to investors, sponsors, corporate sponsors, international sponsors for both clubs. So that can only be a good thing. And it also might help us attract and retain some of the best players in the world playing in our league. It might also be a feeder club for Brisbane Broncos. So you could have players going both ways. They'd obviously be able to tap into some of the best talent in London. Obviously, that's massively densely populated. So on the face of it, it sounds really, really good. And we can't see any obvious drawbacks. In stark contrast to potentially the NRL taking a stake in Super League. We think that would be an unmitigated disaster. So, we'll come on to the state of play in a second. But, yeah, the Broncos deal, let's make it happen. It's going to be really good for the game. I don't see any drawback. Do you want to move on to the bigger picture, or have you got another question?
Just one question. I was just thinking, is this like the initial move potentially for the NRL to take a stake in the Super League? Do you know what I mean? Does it almost open up the floodgates, make that next move a little bit easier?
I don't think so. No, the NRL are only interested in one thing, and that's themselves.
Yeah.
And it's really bad news. I think most people in the UK think that the NRL taking a stake in Super League would be a good thing. The truth is, I think it would be an unmitigated disaster, and the NRL are one massive gambling mafia-related Ponzi scheme. So I've got a question for you.
Right.
I'm not mincing my words here.
Yeah.
If you look at what happens in Australia, gambling is how most of the league is funded. In every stadium, you've got a poker machine, you've got significant gambling revenues going onto the balance sheets of the clubs. One of the major sponsors is Sportsbet.
Yeah.
The NRL actually make money from Sportsbet. Sportsbet pay the NRL. Now, how is that not a conflict of interest? Can you answer that? Because I can't see it.
No, that's a very, no, I didn't know that.
It's a huge conflict of interest.
Yeah.
So you guys have got kids, right?
Yeah.
Kids are impressionable, especially when they're 5, 6, 7 years old. They see flashing lights on a roulette machine. Would you want your kids seeing that at 5 and trying to press the right button? Neither would I. So, no, I just disagree. And then the other thing is, Peter Vlandis is the head of, I think, one of the state's Australian racing bodies, horse racing.
Yeah.
So again, he is in bed with gambling money. Yeah. And I just think that we need to be very, very careful in terms of what sort of money we take, how we take that money, how that money is deployed. But I've just got one more quick question. Yeah. Would you rather take gambling money in inverted commas, or would you rather take Saudi money? I'm just throwing out there, I'm playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, I was thinking there, what other sources of money are there? And is it a necessary evil? And I thought, days gone by, it was cigarettes, it was tobacco. There was huge sponsors in sport, and we kind of got rid of that. And then perhaps alcohol, but I don't know if there's the same amount of money available in the alcohol world, with profits getting squeezed in most industries. And is gambling really the only big pot of money that we can actually tap into that is kind of very much aligned with sport?
I don't think it is. I think we've got two choices. You've either got Arab money, Chinese money, or gambling money. Which one would you rather take? What's the lesser of those three evils? That's the first question. Why do you think the NRL have gone to Vegas?
Yeah.
The obvious thing to do, like most other businesses, would have been to go to Saudi. Boxing's gone to Saudi. Golf's gone to Saudi. Snooker's gone to Saudi. You've got Ronnie O'Sullivan turning up in a Saudi dishtasher on TV. I mean, that's good in terms of the image or publicity stunt or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I'm just not comfortable with the gambling side of it personally, and I don't have kids, but I wouldn't want my kids seeing those things in the stadiums. I just no. So the good thing is, if you look at what happened with Super Rugby, that was the best. I use best loosely because it's actually the worst Ponzi scheme in the early 2000s. All they did was add franchises, increase the TV rights, add franchises, increase TV rights again, until it all collapsed on itself. They added Japan. They added Fiji. They added Argentina. They added a 5th Aussie team. Blah, blah, blah. And it was just an unmitigated disaster. So there's a serious risk that could happen with the NRL, with us, and potentially other countries. So there's some really, really sort of fine issues at play here. And
go into that a little bit deeper for me, if you can. What do you mean when you do you think the NRL's in danger of collapsing in on itself? Is that what you're saying to me?
No, I just think we have to be very careful who we get in bed with and why.
Yeah.
What are their motives? Have they got the sport's best interest at heart, like Mr. Beaumont does with Lee Leopards, or are they in it for financial gain? IMG have come in. Now, they haven't pulled their weight so far.
Yeah.
They haven't really improved the game. And they're talking about having a return on their investment. That's just not how business works. Pull your weight, grow the game. People can tell if you're passionate and you love the game. Be fit for purpose. Pass the fit and proper rules that you need to pass. We've got so many things to improve before you can even talk about a return on investment. It's just wrong. And that's my concern with the NRL. They're interested in one thing only, and that's easy, quick money. That's why they're in bed with the gambling companies. That's why they've gone to Vegas.
Yeah.
So I'm not comfortable with any of that. IMG poses other issues, and we come on to the RFL. The RFL is not fit for purpose. The salary cap needs to be looked at more closely. We've had reports of players having to bring their own food to work. The reserve grade system's awful in England. There are no scholarships, barely any scholarship systems or academies. Players at Fev Rovers have had to turn up in their own kits, or the kits of teams that they used to play for. We've lost Toronto, PSG, Crusaders. It's embarrassing. And you're talking to us about a return on investment? Do I have to bring in my own Cornish pasty from the petrol station to work?
Your own
what?
Ginsters.
Doesn't make sense. Yeah. And then Catalan have got to pay for all the teams that are playing away, that are going to visit them. What kind of system is that? It's broken. Hunslet last year couldn't afford to hand medals out. So you've got to start from the ground up.
Yeah, okay, fine. I get your point, and it's quite easy to sort of RFL bash or lay the boot into somebody. What would you, if you was putting a team together to improve standards of rugby league in the UK? What would be your first point of call?
I think the issue is, up until now, nobody's taken the lead, packaged up rugby league in our country to be an appealing product or be an appealing experience, both visually and on TV for the fan. So we've fallen further and further behind other sports. If you look at darts, it was a pub game. Compare Lakeside to the PDC now.
Yeah. Look
at snooker before Matchroom got involved in Eddie Hearn. Look at it now. It's growing globally with record attendances and massive viewing figures. The Masters final was on last night, and the BBC have extended their contract till 2032. The opening day in finals for the Masters next year was sold out in minutes. Would that ever happen in our sport if we left it as it is? No bloody chance. It's just not going to happen. So I think you've got to look at Shrewdies that have got a track record of having done it before. You've got to look at Matchroom as a potential option. I'd be much more comfortable with Matchroom taking the reins. Okay, they've brought in Paddy Power as a major sponsor of the darts. Fine. But by the same token, they've grown boxing in Saudi Arabia and snooker in Saudi Arabia. And gambling's banned in Saudi Arabia. So they can do it both ways. They know that there are different ways to skin a cat, and they've got different approaches. Whereas with the NRL, it's gambling. So, I'm just not comfortable with that. If you look at clubs in isolation, what revenue streams do they have? They've got tickets, they've got outlets, they've got food and drink, TV deals, sponsorship, hospitality, partnerships. But what's the actual identity of each club in the Super League? Lots of clubs, it doesn't even feel like they have an identity. So how can you package that up into a massive appealing product for an investor from a foreign country to get involved? If the clubs look like they're 20 years behind, stadiums haven't been refurbished, there's no proper academy system, training grounds are like I don't even know what word to describe.
To play devil's advocate, that's why IMG have been brought in, really, haven't they? They've been brought in to raise the standards of these clubs, to give them an identity. I agree in some respects that they haven't nailed it yet, and we are still waiting to see, what the next step with IMG is. But I certainly think that their ideas, the initial ideas of raising the standards of the clubs are going in the right direction. Or do you disagree?
Okay, we've just had COVID. Yeah, we've just had COVID. We've come out of a really difficult period for all clubs.
Yeah.
Right? How can they talk about a return on investment within such a short period of time post-COVID? The government itself is in tatters and failing to plug the gaps that have been left by paying everyone to be on holiday or whatever during COVID. I can't remember the exact word. They had a word beginning with F.
Furlough.
What was that?
Furlough.
Yeah.
Furlough.
Yeah.
What planet are you on? IMG. Do the work. Sort it out. It's an expensive sport to deliver. You've got safety costs. You've got security costs. You've got player welfare and player safety. That's got to come first. You've got insurance, you've got indemnity costs, and costs are going up and up and up for clubs. I mean, there was some changes to national insurance in the budget this year, and that means the clubs need to find more money to plug that hole. What a complete farce. So I think we need to create rugby league poster boys, invest in their time, invest in their energy. We've got some awesome players. They're commercial assets that haven't been tapped into yet.
Yeah, I agree.
If you look at it on Australia, you've got Cleary, you've got Adam Reynolds, you've got loads of poster boys in that Australia team. What have we got in the UK? We've got a little bit of Mikey Lewis, close to grand final time. And we've got Bevan French on some billboards, but he's not even English.
There is where I do agree with you. We do have stars of the game. We have some incredible athletes.
Exactly.
And I do think the clubs need to be marketing them better. Both the clubs and the RFL, in all honesty. People remember stars as much as they remember clubs, don't they?
For sure.
People, Martin Fire. People remember Martin Fire. Yeah. We need to create stars of the game. Definitely, I think that is
exactly. So it needs to be a breeding ground.
Yeah.
So the thing with London Broncos is, hopefully it happens. Are we selling a prize asset? No. I wish it was a prize asset. It's not. I wish it was seen as a trophy like Liverpool Football Club or something. It's not. Are Brisbane getting investment for a bargain basement price? Yes, they are. So the question is, what's better? 0% of zero or Brisbane getting involved?
Brisbane getting involved, 100%.
It's got to be the last one.
Yeah.
Brisbane getting involved. So, I mean, I hope Eddie Hearn does come forward. I hope that he does start to get it. I think his team do have a really good approach, despite him trying to shaft me for a table of 20 at the Dart about 10 or 11 years ago.
But you're not bitter about it.
I spoke to him on the phone. My dad actually used to play snooker with his dad in the 80s and 90s with Barry Hearn.
Oh, right.
So I called him up. I said, we need a table for 20 to 25 people at the Dart. And he quoted me an even higher price than his marketing team had quoted me. So I was like, thank you very much. I'll speak to you later. So he's a shrewdie, but I think he could make it really, really popular, help grow the sport. I think he is a rugby league outsider, so you may have to educate him, guys.
It's just, what sticks out in my mind is like, okay, all these things that you're talking about there, let's get all that on one spreadsheet. Like, what is the bottom line figure required to even attempt to make a difference? And I mean, it's easily into the tens of millions, isn't it? Easily into the tens of millions.
Yeah. Game doesn't have the money at the minute.
No, this and the sniper makes a great point. Like, should more effort before put into attracting the Saudi money, or like even give us a checklist, achieve these things, and we'll have a look at you. Right, let's get on with that. And surely IMG are having these kind of conversations. We just don't know, do we? Dicking around. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We just don't know. They seem to be just dicking around.
I don't think they are. I think they might be seeing rugby league as one asset within a portfolio, and if that asset within the portfolio isn't performing as expected, then other assets will, and other assets will be paying for the product that isn't doing so well. But if everybody, look, IMG are not rugby league people. Yeah. You need to have a team of rugby league people on board. Your Beaumont and, the Leeds Rhinos chairman and people like that with a vested interest in growing the game and making sure that it survives. The problem is, my house isn't only on fire. Your house isn't only on fire. The whole street's on fire. And that's been highlighted by Salford and by what happened to London Broncos last year. The grading system is a disgrace. It needs to be looked at. Everyone needs to understand it. There needs to be transparency and honesty. And then once you've got a team of smart individuals with some super smart accountants sitting next to them that have a vested interest in the game, then you can start growing it to be as good as darts or snooker or whatever. So that we have a great sport to look forward to in 20 or 25 years' time. And so that when Penrith come to visit Wigan or whoever it is in 20 years' time, they're blown away by the stadium experience, not vice versa. Penrith are having their own stadium rebuilt this year from the ground up. They're homeless. So they're going to be playing away the whole season. So, it can work, but everyone needs to be singing from the same hymn sheet.
It was incredible. We just spoke to Paul Parkin from the Devil in the Detail podcast. A club podcast for Salford, and they basically described an absolute deck of cards in terms of Salford. So they had no proceeds from that stadium at all. They paid rent. They didn't get any income from refreshments, beverages, any other events there, even advertising around the pitch. They just got nothing. Well, that's got to be one of the main revenue streams for a club. And I think you're right, in terms of like everybody's house is on fire. These are indicators, and it's quickly going to catch up the other clubs as well. You can see Ken Davey at Huddersfield, he's scratching, trying to sort out his own stadium. Because I think these clubs realise that they've got limited potential for creating income.
How many clubs, guys, actually own their own stadium in Super League?
We think about 5 or 6, about half of them, we think.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, about 50%, and then some of those clubs, it's almost like a joint. You look at Leeds, for example. You've got Headingley Cricket, and you've got in fact you've got the Tykes there as well. So there's a few clubs play out of that stadium. I think
the university might have some.
Yeah, so it's unclear
there
really
as well. Yeah, I'm not sure with Leeds. Cass do, Wakefield do, Saints do,
Warrington do. Wigan,
no, it's about half. Oh, Catalan, no, I'm not sure about Catalan. Yeah, Catalan do, I think.
Would you say that's a must though, Sniper, that they've got to have the stadium? Therefore, although they've got the larger costs of running a stadium, they can actually take in every bit of the income from it.
It's got to be. I mean, the problem is running a business in the UK is so expensive, so time consuming. You've got national insurance, you've got tax, you've got overheads, you've got rates, God knows how many other things. That before you've even started, you've got a massive minus on your balance sheet.
Yeah.
So if you haven't got all those income streams that you can realize or profit from or grow yourself, you're going to be in a hole, and that hole's going to grow.
Well, this is exactly what's happened at Salford.
Yeah. So you need to be the master of your own universe. If you're not, it's really bad. The other thing is, if you want to attract the best talent, you've got to have the facilities. So to build a decent, academy or training facility, it's probably going to cost you 5 or 6 million quid. Yeah. So you want to attract the, players from the NRL. They want to come in and see a really good facility, not players having ice baths in wheelie bins, or someone having bought his Cornish pasty and having it in the petrol station because there's nowhere to sit for lunch. And that's the problem. So it's got to start from the ground up. I think you've got to have a team of super smart accountants sit down with people who have a vested interest in the game and thrash out those figures and come up with a plan and potentially say, well, guys, the salary cap system isn't working. This isn't working. That's not working. What are we going to do? The good thing I've seen this year is that many clubs, I think of Lee and I think of Castleford in particular, have really improved their brand image, and in their social media presence has become really engaging and really good content-wise. That's great because that'll help them grow a global audience across many different platforms. So that bodes well for the future. They have thought about that. And I'd like to personally thank the Castleford fans because we've had lots of them get in touch with us on social media over the last couple of weeks since that Castleford episode.
Yeah.
We've had reports from this weekend of how they did against Valencia. Zaxini played on the left centre. Sylvester Namo, who we spoke about, scored the opening try. And we even had one fan send in a picture of his daughter posing with Zaxini, who was delighted to take a picture with her in Valencia. So they've been great. Guys, thank you. I'm thanking you personally, Castleford fans, for, really helping getting the word out about the show and, making it a really exciting season. So we're going to keep an eye on them, aren't we?
Yeah, 100%, mate. Yeah, 100%. Look, Sniper, is there anything else I should have asked you, or do you reckon we tie it up?
No, mate, that's fine. There's a lot in there. So I think that's going to become,
Yeah, I think, as always,
big episode.
Never short of an opinion, the Sniper, and he's certainly dived into it. He certainly dived into it this week. Look, thanks for joining us again, and we look forward to speaking to you again next week.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Take care.
Cheers, mate. Thanks a lot.
Cheers. Bye.
Okay, interesting as always with the Sniper there. Now moving on to Tackle 4, and it's Challenge Cup results from the weekend, Karl.
Yeah, there's loads of Challenge Cup results to get stuck into, but I thought we'd just concentrate on the teams outside the traditional heartlands, the ones we always keep a close eye on. But it was a bit of a difficult weekend for teams outside the heartlands. We've got to be honest with you. Rochdale 64, Telford Raiders 16. Spoke to some of the lads from Telford. They really enjoyed the occasion. The result didn't go the way they wanted it to. I think it's really grown the profile of the club, which is one thing I think everybody at the club's got to take away from it. They've put Telford Raiders on the map up north. People know the name now, which is great to see. But a difficult day for the players, I think. Yeah,
despite scoring first. They must have scored that try. I've watched the highlight actually there, and I was like, pretty decent try.
Yeah, Luke Davis went in first. They had a difficult period of, I think, about 30 minutes where, they started to leak quite a few tries. I think in the second half, they really got it together. They started realising the sort of level that they've got to get themselves up to. And they had a decent second half. Really great experience for the lads. They've really enjoyed it. So, fair play to Telford Raiders.
Moving on then, you got Murfield and the Royal Navy.
Murfield 20, Royal Navy 26, and then London Chargers, they came out on the wrong end of the result against Ulton Raiders. So it was London Chargers 12, Ulton Raiders 28. Really close game that. Ulton are a team that have been going around for years, aren't they? It's a very experienced outfit. And then a difficult result, West Hull 90, Edinburgh Eagles 0. Tough learning curve there for Edinburgh Eagles.
Yeah, but I'm sure all those teams and all those players took something from it, even if it's just the joy of playing in the world's oldest cup.
Of course. It's the most prestigious rugby trophy there is, isn't it? It's been going around for 100 years or something. Anybody that is lucky enough to compete in the Challenge Cup, I think it's a moment they'll always remember. Yeah, so fair play to them.
And good to get some of those games over the line as well after the cancellations the other week, and it actually sets up some really exciting games in the next round.
There's some really exciting games coming in the next round, so we'll have a look at them now. So the West Warriors are playing the British Army on Saturday.
So it's basically New Zealand versus Fiji, that.
Massive carrot dangled on this one though. Winner plays Leeds Rhinos. So
huge,
don't get any bigger than that, does it? Whitehaven v Swinton Lions. That should be should kick each other's teeth in. Hunslet ARLFC versus West Hull. That should be a great game. Rochdale Hornets v Widnes Vikings. There's a lot of intrigue in that one.
Well, it's a bit of a local derby, isn't it? They're not a million miles apart. But
Widnes picked up a win against Warrington in a pre-season friendly. No, it wasn't probably Warrington's full-strength side, but Widnes looked pretty good this year. Oldham v Rochdale Mayfield. So Rochdale Mayfield have,
close neighbours.
Yeah, that's going to be a difficult afternoon. But again, it's one that those players are never going to forget. Going up against Sean Long's All-Star Championship side. So that's going to be a great afternoon for him. Keighley Cougars v York Knights, another cracker. So there's some real good fixtures here. Sheffield Eagles v West Bowling. So West Bowling amateur side from Bradford going to get to play against the Eagles. And then the big one, Bradford Bulls versus Doncaster.
That'd be an interesting game, that. I mean, Bulls are flying, aren't they?
Yeah, and does winner play Castleford?
I don't know.
Yeah, winner plays Castleford, so loads of intrigue there, mate. I'm looking forward to that one.
I mean, the Bulls could do Castleford, like, if they can get past Donny, and all indications are they will. Well, and they could do.
Well, yeah, they turned over Huddersfield Giants this weekend, which I know it wasn't Huddersfield's strongest side, but it was far from a weak. It was the strongest side that Huddersfield could put out at the time, and they looked good. So I don't want to keep banging on about Bradford Bulls, but yeah, I am excited. I am excited for this season. I'm looking forward to it. Right. Other fixtures coming up, we've got York Acorn v Ulton Raiders, Halifax Panthers v Thatto Heath, Dewsbury Moor versus Dewsbury Rams.
Wow.
Yeah, check that out. What a game that's going to be. I mean, nobody left in their houses in Dewsbury that weekend, will there?
One thing's for sure, Dewsbury will win.
Barrow v Crossfields, Royal Navy v Workington Town. That should be a great game. And then London Broncos, whose fans are going to be just buzzing if this story comes to fruition, versus Gull Vikings, their first professional rugby league game. So a lot of intrigue in that one as well. So it should be a great game in the capital. Loch Lane v Hunslet, RLFC, and then Waterhead versus Featherstone Rovers. Last lot of fixtures. So Blackbrook versus Innsrose Bridge, Midlands Hurricanes versus Siddle. We're hoping to get to this one, aren't we?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we're already chatting to a few people in the Siddle camp. We know people in the Midlands Hurricanes camp, so it's going to be an interesting day. That and nice that they're going to bring a stalwart of like NCL talent to the Alexander Stadium to experience that as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure they're excited to come and play at the Alexander. I hope they bring a lot of fans down. I think they will. I mean, Siddle had a big taste of the Challenge Cup last year, didn't they? They played Wakefield last year.
Yeah.
I know it was at home, but yeah, I'm sure they're buzzing, and it could be a great game. That I mean, Midlands look good this year. They turned over Batley at the weekend, but it could still be a great game. Cornwall versus North Wales Crusaders, another one that's pretty difficult to call, I would say, at Cornwall. And then Newcastle versus Batley Bulldogs. So they're all your fixtures for round 2. And then obviously Super League sides are in the next round. So
yeah, and we've still got this story, haven't we, of like, is this the right time for Super League teams to come into the competition? And we've had a few comments backwards and forwards. We've done a little bit of a poll as well. And I think most people are kind of saying it's 50-50. There's equal parts good to equal parts bad. And I just hope that all the players get through unscathed and can still go to like the electrician's job on Monday or whatever, But
it is 50-50. I mean, like I say, I did run a poll on Twitter asking what people thought about it, and we kind of mirrored what we were talking about last week. The players that are in it, they want to be playing against these big sides. It's such a boost for them, for their careers, getting to play against championship outfit or maybe even a Super League outfit to get through another round. But yeah, there is that safety aspect about it as well. So I think, to conclude, I think your mate said, didn't he, sort of right, I think it'd be better if it was a few more weeks down the line and gives amateur clubs a bit more time to get sort of match fit and match ready, coming up against teams that are already in like a full pre-season.
Yeah, he painted a real sort of picture of it, didn't he? Jason Greenwood McDonald, part of the coaching staff, and does an incredible job with the ground at Siddle. And he was talking about their fixture against Wakefield last year. And he basically saying, first half was brilliant. Everyone was buzzing, and they really competed. And then he got in the change rooms at half time, and everybody looked round at these like broken Argentinian soldiers from the Falklands. and the realisation hit them. They were like,
we've got to do another 40 minutes.
We've got another 40 minutes. We were bruised and battered already, and the realisation that I've got to get up to work on Monday and my mortgage depends on it. So it is a serious thing. But then the flip side, he said financially it was incredible for the club.
Yeah,
in terms of raising the profile, brilliant.
Yeah.
Excellent opportunity for, those players to be exposed to high level players and international players and all that kind of thing. So yeah, maybe it's just one of those things where it's a necessary evil. So in order to get all the good from it as well.
It certainly made the Challenge Cup exciting. I mean, we're talking it with excitement. We're going, Siddle are playing Midlands Hurricanes this week. It is exciting.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's one of them. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer.
Well, but the Siddle Hurricanes, that's not Super League, is it? They're not full-time professionals.
No.
And I think this is the big, there's a big difference in skill, strength, size.
Winner does play Salford, though.
Yeah. Well,
if Salford
is still around,
make it to the field.
Okay, tackle 5, and this is a story that we really want to get a bit of exposure to, and that is the story that that Love Rugby League has been has published. On the lookout for the great former GB Lee Warrington St Helens star Alex Murphy. Personally, I've had dealings with Alex Murphy when I was at Huddersfield Academy. He was the head coach at the first team. And
what did he slag you off for wearing them shit yellow boots he used to wear?
Mate, these are in the days long before yellow boots.
Oh, okay.
This is like black miters, inch long metal studs.
I bet you used to wear cycling shorts, didn't you? So you didn't get cold.
Torpedoes, mate. Remember the torpedoes?
Well, I don't know what torpedoes.
Yeah, you do. Barry Mack used to wear them.
Padded cycling shorts. To be fair. I used to play against, I've said this before, Ryan Hall used to play against him. He was difficult enough to tackle because he had fucking massive legs. He used to wear padded cycling shorts as well, so couldn't get your arms around him.
Anyway, so back to the story. So Alex Murphy, I think he's the only recipient of 5 Challenge Cup final medal. There can't be many players that's had that 5 winning cups. Anyway, as the story goes, all these medals have gone missing right now. They haven't been sold. Like Alex Murphy hasn't sold. And by the way, he's just been diagnosed with dementia. So there's a big campaign to try and get these medals back. So he hasn't been sold. They believe he's given them away in the glass house in the pub in St Helens, right?
Give his championship.
He's just giving his medals away, right? So anyway, they're on the lookout to try and find him, and we thought we'd just give a little bit of a shout out to anybody that has got any Challenge Cup winning medals that belong to Alex Murphy. The family are trying to get those back. Now I don't know, if they're willing to pay for them or whatever, but it just seems right that they go back to the rightful owner.
Yeah, sure. This sounds like the story of the World Cup trophy that went missing.
Yeah.
No one knew about it, but if anybody does have them and don't really know where they've come from or whatever, get them handed in and get them back to him.
And so much. We were talking about books earlier on. Murphy's Law is Alex Murphy's autobiography. That's a great read. The guy did so much at such a young age. I think he made his debut at like 16-year-old. Just did incredibly well. St Helens Lee Warrington legend, and the first player, I believe, to win the Challenge Cup with 3 different clubs. So really,
I'm impressed with your knowledge here, Craig.
To be fair,
you didn't read it anywhere, did you?
Yeah, I did read it in the Love Rugby League. So thanks for looking after me. So if you do know the whereabouts of any of these medals, then get in touch with the family, and you can
awesome.
hand them back. Right, Karl, for Williams Weekly this week. Obviously, we had former referee Ian Smith in the studio last week, and we recorded a brilliant podcast with him. We did over an hour and a half talking about his career and the stories and what he does now with State of Mind charity, and he left us a copy of his book, right? And it sort of prompted this thought that there's a ton of rugby league related books out there.
Yeah.
And I just wondered what was people's favourite or what was one that stood out, and almost have like our little Rugby League Outsiders book club, right? So now I haven't started reading this yet, but you have. I know you have.
Yes.
So basically it's self-published. Put a lot of time and effort into this, and then the proceeds are then split between 2 charities. One is the State of Mind charity, and the other one is a dementia charity because his lifelong partner is suffering with dementia. Anyway, so now by all accounts, it's an incredible read. What have you found of it so far, Karl?
I'll be honest, and I'm not just saying this because we had him on the podcast. I'm about 7 or 8 chapters in. And it is a really good read. Honestly, he was part of the first full-time referees that we ever had in Super League. He was part of that group of 6, and he talks about his career. And the first chapter is absolute gold, right? So Ryan Bailey's involved and Lee Radford's involved.
Enough said.
A lot of punches and being escorted out of the ground at Hull. It's such a great opening chapter. So he talks about his last time he ever blows a whistle in a professional rugby game, and then the story develops from there. And then he talks all about his career and career highlights. travelling abroad. I mean, I don't want to give too much away because I want people to buy it. It's such a good book, but it's a real good read.
Well, we'll put links to this book underneath the description, and you can look out for that podcast dropping on Wednesday. And please give it a share. If you think of anything about the State of Mind charity, just give that a share, and we can get people buying these books. All right, so on to other books, rugby league related books. Right now,
You've read more than me, haven't you?
Yeah. Because I'm a bit more intelligent than you, Karl, isn't it? That's why. But
some say that.
So anyway, a couple of books. I love Jamie Peacock's No White Flag. I thought that was a great book. Some really funny things that I always kind of think about. Leon Price, great book.
I've never read Leon's.
Yeah, no, it's great, but you sort of think, well, what's good about Leon Price is he talks about that Great Britain tour when he basically slagged off Bondi Beach.
Oh, yeah, right clip that was, wasn't it?
He basically said, it's not, Blackpool's better than Bondi.
Yeah.
And
in true Aussie fashion, they didn't take that as a joke, did they?
No, well, this is in that book, he said one thing that struck him was like just the level of scrutiny that the teams were under by the press.
Yeah.
Like in the UK, you got the odd journalist and maybe a shit podcast that'll stick a microphone in your face. But he said everywhere there was journalists, and they really caught him out. They kind of started following him around all over looking for sound bites because he slagged off Bondi Beach. Anyway, that's really good. And you recently come across an author reached out and sent you a book, Karl.
Yes, this is like completely left field. This is a murder mystery book.
Yeah.
Based around a rugby club in France. So yeah, it's fiction. I haven't read it yet. It's on my list after Ian Smith's book. Once I've finished that, I'm gonna get stuck into this. So but this is part of a series of books by Chris Berry, and we're hoping to get him on as well. He's going to come and talk about it. So yeah, if you're into murder mysteries, if you're into rugby league, and I think some sex in there as well. So what's not to love?
Yeah, a couple of other books. Barry McDermott's Built for Rugby League, right? That's a great book, especially when you hear about him getting shot in the eye as a kid. Because obviously
I've never heard that story.
Yeah, so when he got,
I've never actually. I know obviously
he's got a glass eye,
but I never knew what had happened.
Yeah, his mate shot him in the eye with an air rifle. As a kid, he lost an eye. Yeah, so just great stories from legends of the game. And Moz has got a great book as well. So yeah, just brilliant. All of those players get a mention in Ian Smith's book, actually.
Yeah, I've read Robbie Hunter Paul's Rugby Warrior autobiography. I really enjoyed that. The only thing I didn't like about that is he had the book covering the Huddersfield Giants colours. It was when he was working at Huddersfield. I never quite understood that, but anyway, that's for another day. But yeah, Rob Paul's book's really good, especially when he talks about the first Wembley occasion. And I think he said that he was captain of the team, and I think he said to the players, right, if anybody scores a hat trick, so there was like a big pot of gold, wasn't there, for anybody who scored a hat trick at Wembley. And he basically said, if anyone scores a hat trick at Wembley, you've got to share it out with the rest of the team. Because he was basically thinking, it's easy for wingers. All they've got to do is put ball down. And that was his reasoning. And then he went and scored a fucking hat-trick, didn't he, in the final. And, I think Graham Bradley, the Aussie loose forward, give him loads of stick. He said, just won't let it drop. So that was a really good little story in there.
Chris Rodlinski as well. Great book. He tells about his story at Challenge Cup where he shit his pants, and he had to honestly, you got to read it. And he had to run in and change his shorts, and somehow like half the crowd didn't notice he was gone. He was gone. But anyways, one thing's for sure, there's some great books out there. I'm really interested to know what books you've enjoyed reading. Should we be encouraging more? Like, by all accounts, this is the first autobiography from a professional rugby league referee. Yeah. First one of its kind. So, we should be encouraging more books, I think, of people, especially because it's a bit easier now to self-publish a book. You don't have to go and get like a massive book deal like you used to. You can kind of do it yourself a little bit. So, want your input. So stick your book recommendations down in the comments below.
Yeah, and just wait for the podcast dropping. It's a great watch, isn't it, Craig? The podcast with Ian Smith. You'll get a bit of an insight into what's in his book, but we don't give too much away. But yeah, it's a great episode.
Okay, as always, thanks for watching the Rugby League Outsiders set of 6. It's been a great episode. Really enjoyed it. So until the next video, anything to finish, Karl?
No, mate. Sorry, I'm fucking.
See you later on.